So now we're ready to take everything we've done so far and put it into this final template document so that we can get it ready to turn in for final grading. This should be the quickest part of the process, assuming you followed directions and saved everything along the way. So we already talked about changing the name layer. We also want to make sure we fill this information out right here. And then the object, I'm going to leave the semester the same. We have this. So now we need to put the original image in. So again, you can go to File and Place to find these on your computer, but you could also go ahead and just drag them in. Since I have them open on my desktop, I'm just going to drag them in. So here's that source image that we started with. I'm going to pull that in and put it right here. There it is. I'm not going to make it much bigger because I worry it's going to get pixelated, but I'll try to make it a little bit larger. If you hold down Shift Option Command and then make it bigger, it will actually make it bigger. If you don't do that, it'll just make the actual box bigger, which isn't that helpful. You could also change it with the percentage up here as well. You can go to like 200%. That's another way to do it. But I think that's pretty good. I don't really want it to be too pixelated. If you can go bigger, that would be great. I also want to make sure I line it up in the middle, so I'm going to make sure it's aligned to page, and I'll go ahead and center that. All right, then we need to put in that black and white image. So I have that. I'm going to just plop that in there right there. I'm going to go ahead and center it again, and I'll go ahead and make it larger to match the other. Whoops. And then I'll put in the threshold. So black and white threshold image, so I have that. I'll plop that in there. I'm gonna go ahead and center it. If I come up here and I click the center here instead, it'll reference point the center. That way when I make it bigger, it'll do it from the middle and I won't have to realign it. I'll go ahead and put in that posterized image now as well. Go ahead and center that. 200%. So we're cruising right along. So we've got all this stuff filled in. Then we get to the sketches. So I need to put those in as well now. Your sketches might be in multiple files or it might be in one file. So if it's in multiple files, you just drag those in. I have it in one file, so I'll show how that works. So I'm going to drag that sketch file in, and now I have it in that content gun. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in this box, and it'll load it in. But now it's not quite right. I need to fix this. Remember, InDesign works in a frame within a frame concept. So if I move this around, it's not doing what I want. So I need to get on that direct selection tool so I select the file that's actually inside of it. And in this case, I also need to rotate this. It's not quite right. So first I'm going to make it bigger because I want to zoom in on just one of these sketches. Then you can rotate it in a couple different ways. You could do it right here is an easy way to do it. Or you can come back to the selection tool and then you'll get the ability to rotate it this way. It just depends on what you're dealing with. And then I'll go ahead and zoom into these sketches so we only see one in each box. If your sketches are really tiny, you could potentially put more on a page than what we see here. Also, if this happens to you, you can adjust the size of this box. I can actually move this. So I clicked out and went back to the selection tool, so I only see that one. Now I need to do this again. So a couple ways to do this. I could go back and drag it in and put it in again. I could also click on this box and go to File, Place, and actually go to the document again. So like that. The only thing that's unfortunate about that is I'm gonna have to go through the process of rotating again. There's not a right way to do this, but what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually gonna go ahead and delete this box, and I'm gonna copy and drag this over. There's some guidelines in the file that will help you keep things where they are, and then I can cruise around using the direct selection to find the next sketch that I want to include. And as much as possible, keep the sketches the same size. So there's a second one. I'll delete this one and move it down, and then I can cruise in this document and find another sketch that I want to include. So this is a good way to do this. Again, if your sketches work to fit more on a page, you're welcome to, but we like to have 4 on this page and then 4 on the next page. The key here is really just to keep things really organized. We want to make it really easy to see the different sketches, to see the variety that you built. But hopefully that kind of sets you up to be successful with what you're doing. Again, if your sketches are in multiple files, it might even be easier, right? You can just go to each of these boxes and go through that file place and find each sketch and put them in individually. So it just depends. You might even have a combination where you have a couple images of sketches and they're combined. Mine happen to be all in one place. So I'm going to cruise on. You need to do that 8 times to have all 8 of those sketches. Then we get to the digital sketches. The best way I think to do this is to actually use a copy and paste method out of Illustrator. So we have these places for you where we generally want these things to go. That's really just, again, a template that helps you see where we want content. And for the digital sketches, you need at least 4. So I'm going to go back over to Illustrator and I'm going to show you a file that isn't the same file I had before. This was that file, but I'm going to go to the actual file for my final work. And you'll see there's a lot of stuff here. This is what I was talking about, where often in design, we kind of just duplicate things and create a lot of stuff. We often work outside of the page as we're exploring and we're duplicating and copying, so we end up with a lot of different options. And that also allows you to go back if you want to. Like here's an evolution of the one that we were working on together. And you can see I'm trying different things to get to that final solution, but I'm saving them along the way in case I want those. And this is the process that we hopefully had you follow. I talked about that will make it easy for you to show at least 4 digital sketches. But I also explored other Bs. So I went ahead and pulled them out here. If some of them are in like multiple pieces like mine are, it's good to group them together so they're just one piece. And then what I can do is I can select it, again, make sure it's grouped, and then I'll do a copy and then a paste into InDesign. So I'm gonna flip back to InDesign and press paste. And now I have that. I'm gonna delete the box, make this a little bit bigger. All right, then I can go back to Illustrator, grab another one, and continue this process 4 times to get all of these in here. Again, you want them to be more or less the same size. You don't want them too big. Maybe I'm going too big, but generally you want to have them so we can really see them. And then here's another one. So you're getting this idea. And by holding shift, you can just really easily scale these. And because they're vector, you won't have any problems with them pixelating or having low resolution issues. You just want to make sure you hold down shift so that as you're doing that, you're not distorting them. And then lastly, the final one goes here. So that's really easy. For me, this is the final one. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that, paste it here, make it a little bit bigger. There it is. For this project, you don't wanna use color. You're not allowed to use colors, so make sure that everything is in black and white. And then we're ready to go. So obviously I don't have everything in here, but I think you get an idea of how this file should be set up. You can also have some fun on the cover if you want. I'm gonna have a little bit of fun and put the final translation there. I'm gonna go ahead and paste it. Maybe I'll have it bleed off the edge in a cool way, and I'll make it bigger, kind of abstract it, sort of kind of hint at what's coming. And then maybe another thing I'll do is I'll make it low opacity, or I'll make it a really light gray. That way it just feels like it's kind of barely there. So I'm gonna change this, maybe 20%. That's pretty cool. So I'm ready to go. So once you have this all done, you have all the required elements. Again, the cover is not required, but make sure it's there. Make sure your links are all correct. So remember we talked about this in another file, but you want to make sure that all of your links are here and you don't have any question marks. If you do, you need to resolve those links, which means that the file that it's connected to moved on your computer or was deleted. So you can go through and select links and do a relink to relink it to a file. If you need help with that, your instructor can help you. But once you're done, we're just going to do an export now. So file, export, save this where you want it. We want a PDF print. I'll click save. We want all the pages in smallest file size. I'll click export, and that will create that file for us wherever you wanted to save it. And then we can open it in Acrobat and look at that final file and double check it before we submit it. So there's all that process. This looks good to go to submit, and we can get that up there for grading. So if you have any questions about this project or any of these phases, please make sure to write your instructor. They're always there to help you. Again, we know that this is a more challenging project, but it's also really rewarding if you follow these steps, and I hope you're really happy with the outcome of what you created and learned a lot about how to build logos, icons, and vector artwork in Illustrator.